say Reed one more time. Cleaver, I don't know how to say his name. Like, I got rid of so many books and I have zero space on my shelf still. Like, I don't even understand it. Hello book lovers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Steph, and in today's video, we will be doing a book haul. So here we are with another monthly book haul. This is going to be all of the books that I acquired in the month of October. As always, I am going to start with my book of the month selections and then my Aardvark selections, and then I will go through all of the other books that I was able to acquire. I did get 3 book of the month selections and 3 Aardvark selections because I was super interested in all of these books. So let's jump right in to this book haul. So the first book I picked up is Dearest by Jackie Walters. This cover just absolutely stunning. It creeped me out so much. There is like a very creepy little girl on the cover, so I immediately was super drawn to this book. The only thing I know about this book, we are following a new mother and she is kind of struggling with motherhood. She also has a lot of things that are happening within her household, like noises coming through her baby monitor and things that are just out of place. And then her own mother comes to the house to try and help her take care of this new baby. That is all I know about this. It sounds super creepy, and I have heard really good things about it, so I am excited when I eventually do pick this up. The next book I picked up was The Last One at the Wedding by Jason Rekulek. This is the author of Hidden Pictures, which everybody seemed to absolutely love. I personally did not really enjoy that book. It just was not the book for me. It was completely different than what I was expecting. This one sounds like it's more of like a thriller rather than a horror. We are following our main character, Frank, who has not heard from his daughter in a couple of years. They do have a very strained relationship. They have not seen each other or to talk to one another, but then his daughter Maggie calls him and says that she's getting married and is inviting him to the wedding. That is all I know about this one. So I am excited to give this author a second chance. Then the last book I picked up from Book of the Month is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. I have been getting more into T. Kingfisher. This cover is absolutely stunning, so I did want to add this to the collection. So I did pick this up as an add-on. And the only thing I do know about this is that it is a Goose Girl retelling, which isn't saying much because I also have not read Goose Girl and do not know that story, but I am very excited. I do really vibe with T. Kingfisher's writing, so I am curious to see how I feel about this one. Then from Aardvark, the first book I picked up is Where I End by Sophie White. The only thing I know about this is that it is a horror novel and it is a like obsession story about an artist and a child that come into our main character's life. That is kind of all I want to know, and it does say that it is the winner of the Shirley Jackson Award. It is super short, so I should be able to get through this one very quickly. Then I picked up This Cursed House by Del Sandine. This is a debut novel and it definitely gives like haunted house vibes. We are following our main character who uproots her life to go and work for this family, and this family is cursed and they believe that she is the only one that can break this curse. This cover is so stunning. I am very excited to get into this one. And then finally, the last book I picked up from Aardvark is one that I have seen kind of going around everywhere, so I was very intrigued, and that is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reed. I did read one of this author's previous books and it wasn't 100% my cup of tea, so I am curious to see how I will feel about this one. This is a reimagining of Lady Macbeth, and I have heard that it is just like very dark and like gives all of the horror vibes, so very excited to get into this one as well. Then very quickly, I'm going to show 3 books that I have already talked about on my channel, but I did just pick myself up a physical copy. So the first one that I picked up is Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This was probably one of my all-time favorite romances that I have ever read, so I definitely wanted a physical copy for my collection. The next one is The Last One by Will Dean. This is a thriller that I read a couple months ago and absolutely fell in love with. I think that this is such a fast-paced thriller and it takes such a like strange and interesting direction that I just was not expecting, and I really enjoyed it, so I did want a copy for my collection. And finally, one of the best books that I read this year so far, and that is We Used to Live Here by Marcus Cleaver. This is such a creepy story. This will have you on the edge of your seat, but again, the only problem I did have with this is I felt that there was just too many unanswered questions in the end, but I 100% needed this book for my collection, so I am so happy to finally have it. The next 5 books that I will be talking about are books that I actually got from a library sale. So the library in my city did this like annual fall sale, and I did go to the sale to see what they had. They didn't have too much of a great selection, but I did pick up 5 books. So the first one that I got was Still Missing by Chevy Stevens. This is in like really rough condition. It's not in good condition at all, but I have read from Chevy Stevens before and I don't mind her books. So this one was one that I did have my eye on for a while. So I was happy that I was able to pick this up. This is a thriller where we are following the abduction of a real estate agent. Then I picked up Shorefall by Robert Jackson Bennett. This I believe is book 2 in this trilogy. It is a fantasy trilogy. I have read the first one, which is Foundry Side, I believe, but I completely do not remember anything about that book, but I do remember that I actually really enjoyed it. So I did pick up the sequel. Do I have the first one? No. Do I have the last one? No. But again, it was a really good price. Once you take off that like protective plastic from the library, this was actually in really, really good condition. Then a book that I don't hear anybody talking about, and that is Venko by Sherry Dimmeline. I am not actually sure that I'm even saying the title of this book correctly, but the cover of this book just gave me all of these like witchy vibes. So I am very, very excited to jump into this. So the only thing I do know about this is it is a fantasy novel where we are following witches, and the author is Canadian. I have not read from this author before, but I always do like to support Canadian authors. So hopefully I can make this a priority. Then I picked up 2 graphic novels. The first one looks like a horror graphic novel, and the cover just really, really spoke to me, and that is The Dollhouse Family. This is presented by Hill House Comics, which is Joe Hill's, I believe, like comic company. So I do have very, very high hopes for this one. And then I also picked up AD After Death. This is by Scott Snyder and Jeff Lemire, who I have read from before and really, really enjoyed it. This one actually has a lot of text on the page, so it reads more like a novel, but it definitely is still a graphic novel as there are pictures scattered throughout. There are just like blocks of text through this story. And the only thing I know about this is that we are following a story where they have created a cure for death, and we are following a main character who is dealing with the like repercussions of that. Okay, so the rest of this haul I am going to break up into genres. So I will start with all of the fantasy books that I picked up. So the first 2 books that I picked up are part of the Fallen Gods trilogy, and that is God Killer and Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is book 1 and this is book 2. The only thing I know about this story is that it is a fantasy series. I believe it is going to be a trilogy, and it does follow the storyline of gods and monsters, which sounds so good. So in book 1, it sounds like we are following a world where gods have been outlawed. So the king essentially hires these people called God Killers to kill any gods that are still amongst them. It says that this would be perfect for fans of The Witcher and Gideon the Ninth, both of which I have not read yet, but I am very intrigued by this series because they look like they aren't super, super long, and I feel like these would be the perfect books to get into a new fantasy series because they look like they would be very, very quick reads. And then I picked up Iron Flame, which is the sequel to Fourth Wing. I have not read Fourth Wing yet, but everybody and their mother has heard about Fourth Wing. It was all the buzz a couple of months ago. I don't think people have been absolutely loving the sequel as much, but the first one has such high ratings on Goodreads. I feel like everybody loves that book so much, and the only thing I do know about this series is it is a fantasy series where we are following dragons, so I am very excited to finally dive into this series as well. I also picked up A Fire Endless, which is the sequel to A River Enchanted, which I did also just haul. I believe I did haul this last month, so I did want to have the sequel for my collection. And yes, it does say that this is the conclusion to Elements of Cadence duology, so it is just the 2 books. Again, another fantasy series that I will hopefully be able to read quickly as it is only a duology. Then I picked up One for My Enemy by Olivia Blake. It's actually very funny because I don't think that I've actually ever read an Olivia Blake, but I just keep buying their books for some reason, and I don't know if I'm going to vibe with the writing style or not, but this one just sounded so, so good. So in this, it sounds like we are in a backdrop of New York City where we are following 2 rival witch families that essentially go to war with one another and try to maintain their criminal empires. This sounds so perfect and right up my alley. This is the kind of fantasy book that I really do enjoy. I just don't know if I'm going to vibe with Olivia Blake's writing, but I keep buying their books for some reason. And then the last fantasy book I have to talk about is Tress of the Emerald Sea by Brandon Sanderson. I have had had this book on my radar for a while. I'm very happy that I was able to find this at a discounted price. This is part of his like secret novel series where he wasn't going to release them and then ended up deciding that he was going to release them to the public. So I think this is the first one, and this says that it is for fans of The Princess Bride, which I absolutely hated. I remember reading that book for my book club that I used to have here on BookTube, and I really just did not like that book at all. I think I've actually already unhauled that book from my shelves because I just couldn't stare at it anymore. But I do really vibe with Brandon Sanderson's writing, so I am hoping that I do enjoy this one a lot more than that. Now on to like my thriller, horror, mystery books that I got. I actually didn't pick up too many this month, which is shocking because October, I feel like you should be buying all of these spooky books. The first one that I picked up is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. This I actually don't know anything about because I surprisingly haven't actually watched The Exorcist movie. The only thing I do know are bits of what the movie is about, just based on it being like so widely spread through media. And I don't know 100% if the movie is based on this book, but what I know about the movie is that we are following a girl who is possessed, and then they do attempt to perform an exorcism on her. Again, a lot of people call The Exorcist one of the scariest movies, so I'm very excited to dive into the book. But again, I haven't watched the movie, so I don't know how much of this book translates into that. Then I picked up The Night House by Joe Nesbo. This I got at a thrift store, and it is in almost perfect condition. Like, this looks like a brand new book. I don't actually know that the person who brought this to the thrift store actually read this book, but this has just been popping up on my Goodreads recommendations for so long that when I saw it at the thrift store, I decided to pick this up. So what I know about this is that we are following our main character, Richard, whose parents have died, so he gets sent to live with his aunt and uncle, and immediately he is seen as an outcast in this town that he goes to. And then one of his classmates goes missing, and he tries to tell them that his classmate got sucked into this like telephone booth, and of course nobody believes him. This sounds like it is going to be so creepy, just like the cover of this gives you those exact vibes, so I am very curious to see how I feel about this one. Another highly anticipated release that I will be reading in November, and that is The Invocations by Crystal Sutherland. I don't know too much about this. I do know that it is a YA horror. We are following the perspectives of 3 different girls, and it sounds like there are a bunch of murders that take place, and there is a suspicion taking place that this is from a supernatural killer. There is a witch in here, I know that, and I am just very excited to dive into this in November. Then I picked up the sequel to The Maid, which is The Mystery Guest by Nita Prose. I was actually so surprised with how much I liked The Maid. I actually fell in love with our main character, Molly, from the first book. I didn't think I was going to like the first book as much as I did. I feel like the reviews just weren't the greatest on it, but I just felt like our main character was everything I look for in a main character. She is going to stick with me for so long. So this is the sequel to The Maid. I don't think that these stories interconnect, but I do think that we do still follow Molly, and there is a new mystery that she needs to solve. One book that I am super excited to get into, and that is I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I've heard that this is very strange, but I am very intrigued. It sounds like we are following an unnamed main character who is essentially stalking a woman that is sleeping with her husband, or they are sleeping with the same person. I don't know if it's actually her husband. I really enjoy strange novels most of the time, so I'm curious to see how I feel about this one. I haven't really heard too many people talking about it. And finally, the last horror book that I have for this haul, and that is You Like It Darker by none other than the king himself, Stephen King. This is his newest release. I believe that this is a collection of 12 short stories, and people have been absolutely loving this collection. When this was first released, I did watch a bunch of YouTube videos of people just absolutely raving about how good this short story collection is, so I cannot wait to get into this. And again, Stephen King is one of my all-time favorite authors. And finally, the last genre that I have to talk with you guys about is romance. I actually think that I have the most romance books in this haul. A lot of these books are also just continuations of series that I have also talked about on my channel before, so I will keep it very brief, and I will just show you guys the books. So the first series that I did finally complete is going to be the Twisted series by Anna Huang. So this is book 3, which is Twisted Hate, and this is book 4, which is Twisted Lies. This, I believe, finally does complete the Twisted series. Then I also picked up Things We Left Behind by Lucy Score. This is the 3rd book in the Knock 'Em Out series. I do have books 1 and 2, and I'm not sure if there are any other books out in this series, but I do have books 1, 2, and 3 now for my collection. I also finally finished off the Off Campus series by Elle Kennedy. So the 2 books that I was missing from this series was books 2 and 4, so I did pick up The Mistake. Again, this is not the cover that I thought I was going to get. So now I have 2 of the animated covers for this series and then 2 of like these covers. I definitely prefer these ones, just like even the feel of the book. But alas, I thought I was getting all of these, but they sent me this one instead. But that's fine. It's not a big deal. I'm not going to stress about it like I normally would have. So I don't even know if I mentioned. So this is The Mistake, which is book 2. And then this is The Goal, which I believe is book 4. So I do have this series completed now. Another 2 books from the Kings of Sin series. So I am only missing book 4 right now. And that is King of Pride, which is book 2, and King of Greed, which is book 3. These spines look absolutely stunning. I really do want to consider making one of my bookshelves like all for series so that I can like have them displayed together, because I do really think that they look really, really nice when series are together on a shelf. 2 books that I'm really excited about that I have been wanting to read for so long, and now I finally have a physical copy of these books, and that is There Are No Saints and also There Is No Devil by Sophie Lark. These just look absolutely stunning. These are just such a vibe. I'm very excited to have these for my collection. This is the Sinner's Duet, so I don't believe that there are any other books in this series. It is a like dark romance series. So this is following Cole and Mara, and it sounds like Cole is kind of a predator and stalks Mara. Again, this sounds very like dark romance. So if that is not something that interests you, I definitely would not pick these 2 up. The next romance I picked up was The Wall of Winnipeg and Me by Mariana Zapata. I am kind of 50-50 with Mariana Zapata. I read All Roads Lead Here, which I absolutely adored, and then I read Culty, which wasn't a huge hit for me. It was just kind of an average read, but I do really like her writing style, so I will continue to give her books a chance. This is a romance where I believe it is kind of like Grumpy Sunshine. Our main character does work for the love interest and decides to quit the job because it is just like a thankless job. He is just kind of very grumpy, never really like appreciates what she does. But then one day he shows up at her door, essentially begging her to come back and work for him. And I do really like the new covers that were released, so I am excited to have this one for my collection. Then I picked up The Fake Mate by Lana Ferguson. This, I believe, was a book of the month selection, and it was just very intriguing to me. The cover and like color combination of this book is just absolutely stunning to me, so that is kind of why I decided to pick this up. But it also sounds very cute. It is a paranormal like romantic comedy. That is how it is pitched. So this follows 2 wolf shifters who agree to be fake mates, but then I believe that they do develop real feelings for one another. This just looks super cute and perfect for this time of year. Then I picked up a Not So Meet Cute by Megan Quinn. I have seen this book absolutely everywhere on BookTube and BookTok, so I am very excited to finally get into this. So this we are following our main character Lottie, who essentially goes for a walk in this very rich neighborhood, and she bumps into a billionaire named Huxley, and the 2 of them get to talking, and Huxley essentially tells her that he needs her to do him a huge favor, and that is to pretend to be his like fake fiance. So this is a fake dating trope. I've heard nothing but good things about this, and I absolutely love my edition that I got. I like this over the original cover for sure. And finally, the last book that I have for this haul is going to be I Fell in Love with Hope by Len Callie, which is a pen name for the author. I have heard that this book is so heartbreaking and sad, and just reading what this book is about, I already know it is going to be absolutely heart-wrenching. We are essentially following a group of terminally ill patients at this hospital, and they all kind of form a bond of friendship while they are there. Again, this sounds like it is going to absolutely rip my heart out. I do not hear anybody talking about this book, so I am very excited to read this one. That is it for today's video. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did make it to the end of this video, leave the wolf emoji in the comments to represent the fake mate, which is probably one of my favorite covers of all of the books that I hauled in this haul. If you did like today's video, you can also let me know by hitting the thumbs up like button. And as always, if you are new here, I would love to have you stick around. So please hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys all in my next one. Bye!